Welcome to the Lucky 13 podcast, where we talk about all things people, profit, and weddings.
Yes, and crying. How do we get to all you two have been doing is talk about me being a crier? I'm not a crier. I'm Josh, by the way, and I cry.
And I'm Mike, and sometimes I cry.
Okay.
Depends on how hard I get hit.
That's really vulnerable, Mike. Thanks for coming out.
So, big wedding coming up this weekend.
It's wedding weekend. The
Talk
oldest
to us.
daughter.
What's happening?
Number 2 out of 8. So that's why we're lucky 13. I have 8. You have 5. Number 2 in the 8. Is actually they did a quick elope. We knew they were going to elope. They wanted to get married on their 5-year anniversary of dating.
Yeah.
But we were having an official wedding. We're going to Gatlinburg because my kids want to get married on a mountain. My son, the Air Force son's going to officiate it. My daughter's playing a song in it. And I'm sure when that song by Post Malone, Yours, for all fathers at home, listen to that song, it's going to come on, and man, the waterworks are going to happen. But I'm pretty excited. Going to go down and go to Tennessee, get married. I can't wait.
Wow, I just don't know what to say about that. So Kobe's officiating.
Yes.
Was this like a mail order,
No,
license, or
do
you when you go through the military, are you automatically ordained or something?
I don't know how this works. I'm sure.
Well, technically, though, if they're already married, he doesn't have to be ordained.
Yeah, he's gonna make stuff up.
Yeah,
he's probably gonna say you got to do whatever my sister says, and you got to let him play Xbox with me anytime I dial in. That could be the vows. I could see that.
Huh, I like that.
Yeah.
Good. How the rest of the kids? Summer?
It's
Are they
summer.
busy?
Man, they're all tan. They're outside all the time. Soccer all over the place with the younger ones. Older kids are home. Mike has been at the track for the month of May with Al Unser, which is really cool with their family. And Lucy's coming off surgery, so everybody's good. How about you? Fill me in.
Yeah, everybody's good. Josie got back from South Korea last weekend. She was there for 3 weeks.
Okay.
But she's the youngest, and she was there with part of her school program.
Yeah, I remember us talking
She's
about
a
that.
clinical social worker. They were studying their healthcare system over there.
Love it.
She got to partake in the healthcare system. She got sick over there.
Oh,
so she
so
got to
what'd you
partake in
think?
a bit. She thought it was great. She went to the doctor. She waited 4 minutes, walked in. The doctor looked at stuff and all that, charged her $10, gave her prescriptions. She went down the street, got them filled for $17.
There it is.
Cash out of pocket. So
not a bad deal.
not a bad deal. Mason's working his butt off out in
Love
New
it.
York. So he's doing that, enjoying the New York scene. And Jackson's working here. And Madeline just graduated from grooming school at PetSmart.
I love it.
She's doing that. And then Mackenzie's on summer break. She's a third grade teacher.
Love it.
Lots of good things happening.
And why we do this, if you're not segueing with your employees, just once a week, just ask, best thing personal, best thing professional.
Yeah.
This example, we didn't plan this, but this is natural.
Yeah.
And you got to have that natural. That's part of the culture of your organization. So I love that we just did that off the cuff. No idea what we're going to open with, and that's where we went.
And we're over, you're leaving Gatlinburg, and I'm rolling in Gatlinburg. I mean, if we had planned that better, I could have come to the wedding and brought gifts and the whole thing.
We could have big spoon, little spoon. That would have been great.
Yeah, what do we want to talk about today?
You know what? I want to talk about...
well, first off...
Oh, yeah. Let's give a shout-out. Lou Gehrig, C. Scarrig.
It is Tuesday.
Jason Manship. It is Tuesday. I was going to wear it Wednesday. I've wore this before on LinkedIn, so you won't see this LinkedIn post, but I've never worn it on the podcast. Same day finish. Lou's, if you call Lou for something...
By the way, we're not talking about Lou Gehrig, the former baseball,
today,
dead baseball player.
No, former baseball, dead baseball. Thanks for adding the dead part. No, Lou, I think he's one of the icons of Indianapolis.
Yeah,
he and
sure.
Ty, his son, was born a month ahead of me at White County Memorial Hospital.
Really?
We didn't know that. Alicia and Jason, they just run a great organization at C. Scarrig. Gave me this shirt, same day finish. What a great idea. That if you get a hold of Lou, you're going to get a same-day answer from Lou. He's going to make sure that he finds that answer for you, even if it is the answer is going to be tomorrow because I couldn't get a hold of him. His fortune in the follow-up same-day finish. I loved it. Loved the shirt. Plus, it's black. It makes me look thin on TV or YouTube or whatever this thing is that they film. So, yeah. That's
And you're
it.
in shorts today.
I am in shorts.
Yeah.
Golly. Goodness gracious. You said pants optional.
Unger over there wanted us to change the podcast name to Pants Optional.
I think that's a great name to go with. And we're going to start shooting outside going forward.
We'll just call that our DBA. Okay, so you know who Wally Pipp is?
You filled in a little bit, but I don't think the crowd does. So tell
All
us
right,
about
so when I
Wally Pipp.
walked in, I saw your shirt. I didn't know what it was, but I saw the Lou Gehrig, and I know Lou also, Indianapolis Lou. He used to office over at Launch Fishers, and so we know him. But Lou Gehrig, everybody, if you follow baseball, you know who he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got all these records for games played in a row and all this
Iron
kind of
Man,
stuff.
right?
Yeah. So there's a guy named Wally Pipp, and Wally Pipp showed up one day. He was at the time the first baseman for the New York Yankees, And he showed up for game day one day, and he just felt a little groggy or something. Maybe he's a little hungover.
Could be at that time.
Something like that. Just didn't feel like playing that day. Maybe had a hangnail, something like that back in the day.
Gotta hate those hangnails.
And he went to his coach, and he said, I don't think I'm in it for today. And coach said, all right, take today off and put this young up-and-coming player in. His name happened to be Lou Gehrig to play, and Wally Pipp never got his job
I was going to say, that's why nobody knows Wally Pipp.
That's right. That's right. So we always told our kids growing up, don't get Wally Pipped.
No, don't get pipped. I like it.
Yeah,
Pippin ain't easy. Is that right? No? Okay. Pippin.
Pimpin.
Yeah.
Pippin.
Okay. Let's skip that.
Yep.
Let's talk about data for a second. I read the data book. We've talked about data a couple times, but I was trying to think of how do we take this in a fresh, simpler way for conversation purposes. So I want to talk about 5 frustrations that data can solve. Let's just think about it that way. So I got a document I want to work with you, but I'm gonna be the one who asks questions today to give me your feedback. Okay. Right. So the first frustration that I found as an entrepreneur, the companies I work with, the teams I work with, is just the control factor. When I mean control, the predictability of what's going to happen. And so what happens is, with data not involved, what I see is the business is running them. Does that sound familiar? Do you know any companies with that, or sound that you've been around that have been like that?
Yeah, I mean, data is so important, and I think I haven't always been a data focused leader, but when I worked at Defenders, that changed everything, because every decision was made by data. And I remember being in a meeting one time, and it was like the end of July, okay, and we're looking at the results for the month of July, and the CMO at the time gets on and just says, well, we missed some targets. July 4th was a day, and we didn't do many installs on July 4th, and kind of navigating through this, and we get to the end, and it was almost like holidays were the excuse. And he says, well, July 4th comes on the same day every year, right?
Every time.
And what he was basically saying was, why aren't we using better forecasting and better data? And we could have looked backwards and realized that July we have less days that we'll be installing security systems because of July 4th. And data's got to drive everything that we do.
Yeah, when I bring up control, what I try to tell people is data tells you where your focus needs to be. It tells you where your focus needs to be on what happened over the last 2 weeks. It tells you from what happened last year that you can get some predictability of seasonality, i.e. July 4th. It also tells you what you're not focusing on right now. And so, like sales as an example, all of a sudden you start to see sales drop. Well, data will tell you, is it enough people? We seen enough people, or are we not saying the right things? And then you can change your behaviors according to that. And so what I like about data is it doesn't tell you what's going wrong. It tells you that you need to inspect something that's going wrong.
Yeah, and I do think it's important to have the right data, like the right categories of data. First off, the data's got to be accurate, like junk in, junk out type stuff. Absolutely. That's one of the things that I'm finding myself in a lot of AI conversations.
Yeah.
And, if we built a repository and we put all of this data inside of it, but we knew it was all wrong, and then we put some sort of AI on top of it, and we asked AI to extract answers for us based on all this wrong information, it's going to give us wrong answers.
Absolutely.
Right? So we have to really make sure that the data that's there is accurate first, and then secondly, that we're building data sets that help us action the business. So
I love it.
One of the things I love about the EOS model in the scorecard that you look at in your L10s or whatever, it's all, for the most part, it's lead data.
Got to be leading indicators.
Leading indicators, because if I just wait to the end of the month and look at stuff after it's happened, I can't impact
reactive versus proactive at that point. I love it. So we want to first frustration. Why do I need data? Let's just simplify it. Control it. Data will help you control what your next actions need to be.
Yeah.
Second one, based on a book that you're reading right now a little bit, so I want to talk about this. Data will actually talk to us about profit. When cash is feeling tight, data tells you what's going on with profit. So talk a little bit about this book you're reading right now and give us a little bit of insight.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on talking about it today, but because I haven't finished the book, but the concept is awesome. It's called Profit First.
Okay.
And I had a few clients that were reading it. And here's the concept. The author, Mike, I can't remember his last name. I can't pronounce it.
Tomlin.
But,
Jordan.
No.
Jackson.
Anyway, look it up. Profit First. But anyway, he talked about how he ran a few businesses and was fairly successful with those businesses, but he sold those businesses not because they were real profitable, but just because he ran them up pretty quickly, and they were desired as a strategic purchase by somebody else.
Makes sense.
And he always found himself at the end of the month or the end of the year like, okay, on paper it looks like I have a profit, but where's the cash?
Yeah.
And so
it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. So he started thinking through this concept of profit first. So if you think about a typical income statement,
Yep.
you have your revenue coming in the door.
Yep.
Then you have your cost of goods sold that
COGS.
gives you your gross margin. And then you have your other expenses that come out that then gives you your net profit. Net profits always last.
Absolutely.
He encourages you to flip the expense side upside down.
Okay.
So you have your revenue, and then you have your profits, what you should be earning in profits in an organization like yours, benchmark against other types, and you take the profit first.
Love it.
And then it tells you how much money you have to spend on expenses.
I love it.
And then you have to right size your organization to only spend that amount of money, right?
Love it.
Because his philosophy was, if you've got all this money that's there that includes your profit and your owner's salary and all of that, you're gonna find a way, unless you have rock solid discernment and and accountability and control.
Money finds a home.
You're gonna spend it.
Yeah.
And he relates it to he relates it to some studies that have happened around food intake and dieting. And there was there were these studies around how big the plates are in your house really indicates how much food you eat.
I guess this has turned into an intervention, but go ahead.
Not really.
Yeah, feels like it.
But the idea is that you need to make the plate smaller of your expense budget. So if you've got your profits and your owner salaries and all that sitting in one account, you're going to find a way to spend it.
Yep.
You're going to justify, yes, we need that new technology. Yes, we need that new employee. Yes, we need that new thing. And we have cash in there. So he kind of calls it bank statement accounting. If we got the cash there, we spend it. If we don't have the cash there, we tighten up.
I love it. That is, to me, that is a profit first, full and forever mindset.
Yeah.
Get that paid first.
Yeah. So he even encourages, he actually endorses this one bank called Relay Bank that you can go and sign up for this, and you can have up to 20 accounts free. Okay. And you can set automation. So every time a revenue dollar hits this account,
Never saw
it pulls 20% into this. It's almost like your 401k, right?
Yep.
And it drops a specific amount of money into your operating expense account.
Yep.
And that's what you have to operate your
You learn
business
how to
on.
run your business based off the
Yeah.
data. I love it. So data can help you with the profit side. It kind of ties both those together. It's going to give you control and it's going to give you profit side at the same time.
Yeah.
So let's dive into the third one. Do you mind?
Yep.
All right. People.
Yeah.
How does data help us with people? And the way I look at it is, what is the number one thing we want from a people? We want high accountability people. How do we use data to do that?
Well, the first thing is, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, but we first have to then say to people, this is what we expect out of you.
Yeah.
Like,
let's get that clear.
We have to get that really clear.
So we get job roles and functions, but talk to me, how do we use a data component to tie that in?
I think you have to set up, everyone's got to have a number.
I love it.
One or two numbers. I know EOS says everyone's got to have one number, but let's face it, sometimes there's two or three.
Yep, absolutely.
But everybody's got to know, and that's one of the things I love about the accountability chart. Here are the 5 to 7 things I need you to do.
Yep.
And here's how I'm going to measure that behavior.
Correct.
And then we're going to have a conversation, hopefully more than once a year. I think you ought to have them weekly.
Yeah, weekly, minimum, quarterly at the
whatever.
minimum. Yep.
And say, we agreed at the beginning of the year, these were your couple of numbers. Let's see how you're doing against those.
Yeah, everybody wants to have something to be measured with, right? I mean, when we were kids, you had stop clocks. You know, you had classes that were 50 minutes long. Recess was only 15 minutes. When we got 17, that was amazing. We've been trained to think about that, but when we get to the work world, we're no longer held to a number. We're held to an ideal of performance, what somebody's gut feels. And why is it wrong just not to say, these 3 numbers are your 3 numbers. You own those numbers. This is how they affect the firm. And when you get these things done, we feel it, you feel it, and that's where we grow.
And I think a lot of times leaders just are resistant to doing the hard work to really say, this is how I'm going to measure your behavior.
Yeah.
This is how I'm going to measure your outcome. And it's hard sales, it's easy.
Yeah. Yeah. You see the result.
Number of appointments, number of this, that, sales contracts, whatever it is. That's really easy. But how do I go and measure, an IT help desk guy?
Yeah. What's the time and response time? How many open tickets are there? Finance, how many accounts receivable are over 60 days out?
Yeah.
There's so many little things that we can put some key measurements on that we know affect that control and profit that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. So then how do you know, if you don't have those things on, how do you know when it's time to go hire the next one or the next one? And then organizations become bloated because they rely on gut feel, or they rely on the fact that the help desk guy is saying he's overworked. Well, is he?
Or conspiracy corner and somebody had an idea and I'm going to throw it out there.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm the business owner. I'm using data so far. It's going to help me control, tells me what I need to focus on. It's going to help me with profit when I'm going to start thinking about my profit first type mentality. And that helps that cash flow situation not be so tight. That I'm going to operate it from a point of strength, have a war chest of cash, if you will. And then third, I'm going to start having all my people have a data component to their life too. So this isn't a feeling, it is a data number.
Yeah.
Let's go to the
Can I say one other thing on the data? Well, one thing on the profit first thing. I want to be very, very clear because our podcast is people and profit. It isn't saying that profit is more important than my people.
No.
It's saying that I have to be a steward of this business, and if I'm not making profit, if I'm not putting money over here to potentially reinvest down the road or whatever, or pay bonuses or whatever it is, I have a very unstable business.
Correct. Yeah, and your people will be affected.
Yeah, you know what? Mrs. Lantz was listening to the podcast, the one that released on Monday.
I heard. Oh no, what happened?
And you in the podcast that we released yesterday, you had made some comment about when we're hiring people, we're asking them to put their entire livelihood, their family,
correct,
their futures in the hands of us as a business owner.
Correct.
And she was like, "Wait, run that back."
Yeah.
And I ran it back, and you said it again. And do you want to put your entire livelihood, your family, your future in the hands of somebody that can't manage cash
and doesn't have a data way to check it?
Yeah.
They're saying, I think, or I kinda, rather than let me show you the actual metrics.
Yeah. So then the point that I was going to make around people though is, I think a lot of business owners feel like the accountability runs only one way. If we set up these are our numbers.
No way.
I want to be able to show up and say to my boss, I hit my numbers. So get off my ass.
Yes.
You asked me to do this.
If you want more, then let's sit down and have a renegotiation.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's you can't now if at the beginning
unless
of the year
you're not
or
the right person, unless you're just a turd sandwich.
Yeah. But if you said these are the 5 most important things I can do and these are the results I have to hit, I want that because it's clarity. Remember back to the Gallup, the number one thing is I'm clear about what's expected of me in my job.
Man, I've been living on that Gallup. If you haven't listened to the Gallup one we did together, we actually sent that out. That's probably my most favorite one we ever did.
Okay.
So let's dive in. So we got the control, profit, and people. We're using data to that. Now we're hitting the ceiling. Let's just call it what it is. A lot of teams run, and all of a sudden everything just plateaus. Where does data help us when we get to that stuck point?
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it comes back to what we talked about earlier. There are indicators that telling you that you're slowing down. I mean, let's just turn on the night news, and you're going to see indicators that we're in a recession, or indicators that taxes are going to go up or down, or indicators that jobs market's going to be here or there. They don't 100% right, but we got to back to the good data. We got to look at that good data, and if we don't see the plateau coming, right, and we are running all the way to that plateau, then all of a sudden we get stuck, and we don't have any reason to describe it other than it's the market or it's this, and we don't have data to support it. That ceiling becomes hard to break through because you don't have actual real number data items that tells you what your next step is, your most logical next step. So,
what do you think some of the signs of a plateau coming? How can, because I'm flipping through some of the people that we work with, and I'm like, who might be plateaued, and I'm like, okay, once you hit the plateau and you look backwards, there were signs.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you typically see?
Yeah, I'm gonna EOS nerd for a second. We've talked about this before. I love the challenges and skills. So if I see that I'm not increasing somebody's skills, and I keep giving them more challenges, they plateau because they hit a stress level. Or if I see them, I'm not challenging them as much. I'm just letting them run at the level they're at. They start to fade out of this, what I call this zone, this gets it once a capacity zone, and they move into this boredom, and I can tell they're just checking boxes, if that makes sense. And so that challenges and skills have to go together, and that's where, to me, data comes in. I'm going to increase a skill set. I'm going to increase that new number that we talked about, somebody showing up and say, get off my butt, I've hit my numbers. How do I start to do those in conjunction where I'm increasing a skill, increasing a challenge, increasing a skill, increasing a challenge? Because without that, right, grow or die is a real thing. It's one of our go-tos. And if you're not growing, you're dying. How do we use data to do so? This is where I'd say that would fit in the hidden ceiling.
Yeah, and I think also where growth isn't linear.
No.
Right? It's
ugly.
All we want to do is we want to say, okay, hey, I grew by 30%. Why couldn't I grow 30% every year over year? Because it gets harder and harder and harder.
It does.
But also what I've seen with a lot of organizations sometimes is they start growing like that, and their standards for the talent that they bring on board decreases.
And they're not using data points to check that.
Right. And so they have this rock star that helped them grow by 30%, or this team of rock stars, but then the next hire is just a little bit less, and then a little bit less, and a little bit less, and we don't take as much care and time developing them and getting them to be good at their jobs, and then we wonder why the average of something has come down. It's because we've added less quality players.
It's why we celebrate. I'm going to use NCAA basketball back-to-back championships because it's so rare.
So hard.
Because what you find is I always love the first 2 rounds of games because those are people who've been in a system and continue to grow from their freshman year through their senior year. And that's upset city. That's 12 beating 5. That's a real thing we see. Yet we get to the national championship game and it's usually 5 kids that you'll be lucky to see 4 of them playing on the floor next year. Does that make sense to you? And so if you're not using data points to figure out how you're building a dynasty rather than a one-hit wonder, that can get real. And you see it with music, you see it with sports. It's a real thing. And I've seen it with companies that super talented person leaves and all of a sudden the plateau hits them right in the face.
Yeah. I think that's, and I think, listen, I'm the eternal optimist. Like I mean, I think it's going to be sunshine and 85 degrees every day I walk out of my house.
Yep.
But the bottom line is no matter how good things are going to change.
Yeah.
And no matter how bad things are going to change. And you have to plan for that.
Yeah, aware and adapt.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So control, data is going to give us control. It's going to give us levers to think about our profit. It's going to give us key indicators on the kind of people we hire and how well those people are doing without having to have that one-on-one. We're still going to have the one-on-one, but we're going to use data prior to. And then when we start to hit that ceiling of complexity, we should see the bottlenecks before they happen. We should start to see the tightening of that hourglass, if you will, because data is going to show us that it's starting to squeeze itself, guys.
Yeah.
Okay? So let's move to the last frustration. And this is, come on, we've all been here. You just mentioned it. Nothing's working. It's just a big old poop sandwich, and I'm just taking another bite every day, and I'm start to do snow angels in it because I'm wallowing in my own crap. How do I use data when I get into those doldrums of nothing's working? What will data help me do to get out of that?
Well, I'm probably going to go to the extreme side of this and say, and there's all these stories about, what was it, Kodak and Encyclopedia Britannica, who said the internet, everyone's going to want to have a set of encyclopedias on their shelf. And they kept selling the damn things door to door and they went out of business, right? Or what do you mean they're going to have digital phones or cameras? Of course not. They're still going to want to go to the CVS and get the things printed. And so sometimes
you gonna stop at Blockbuster and get a movie on the way home?
No, not at all. So I think there is a point in time where you got to look at your business model and it maybe not just be fatigued, it may be dead.
Yeah.
And that's and we're in a listen, I'm not one of these guys that says that AI is going to replace all of our jobs and all that kind of stuff. But if listeners out there think that AI isn't going to change the world right now,
better be spending
wrong.
18 minutes a day right now.
And they need to get on board with that. So I do think that you got to look at when you're starting to see a decrease or seeing a significant decrease in results around your business model or something that's worked in the past, you have to first go in and inspect. Are we still doing it the way we used to do it?
Yep.
Back in the Defender days, if we saw a dip in close rate, we'd be like, okay, are we off process? We get back in the call centers. We're listening to calls. Are we asking for the social security number too early? Are we asking for it too late? Are we pushing too hard for the sale? Are we off process?
Love it.
If we aren't off process, then it's possible that something has shifted in the marketplace that has changed our ability to get the same results we had before.
So what I'm hearing you say is, and this is where I kind of leaned into this frustration, is if you don't have a consistent history of data, you're guessing on what today's data tells you.
That's right.
I need to have 2-3 years. If you're not starting data tracking today, what's going to happen is when you finally realize that you should, it's going to be too late.
Yeah.
We need to know those numbers leading in. We need to know that July 4th has always been slow and be able to pre-plan for it rather than we're just looking at the numbers this week and be like, holy smokes, what's going on?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so what I hear is data takes you from, I like to call it event-based decision-making when you're in your poop sandwich mode, to coincidence-based decision-making, which can happen. This happened and this happened. Okay, 2 + 2, I see it. More importantly, what it's going to show you, are you in a trend or not in a trend? And that's 3 data points. And if you don't have enough history that you can measure those 3 data points against any other time in history, what's going to happen is when you're in your nothing is working stage, we start guessing.
Yeah.
And guessing, that's, swag is a real thing. I want to use some data points so at least my sophisticated guess has a 70% likelihood of hitting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not trying to count cards at the table, but there's some trends I can see.
Yeah, and your use of the word swag didn't mean like your swagger or your shirt you wear. It meant stupid, wild ass guess
I get
of data.
I even use sophisticated because I went to a big college.
Yeah. I think as we wrap this up, I think one of the things to really understand too around data is what are the friction points in your business around data?
There it is.
Because there's some data that you might collect. It doesn't mean shit, right?
Correct.
But you got to understand what are the 4, 5, 6 data points that matter the most. Like in our business, we basically sell talent.
Yeah.
We have in the HR side of the business, we have these really great HR executives that are going into other businesses and serving as their HR departments. Okay.
Yep.
If we get in a place where for too long where we're overstaffed in that group, I mean they make decent money, right?
Yeah.
If I'm running too high in capacity, it'll tank our profitability. So we always have to be looking at sales, and we have to be looking at what the pipeline is and our historical close rates and all of that, so that we can project how quickly we can fill up a new employee, for example. If we go hire them, we got to know how long it's going to take us to get enough business to make them profitable.
Yeah.
Or it tanks us.
I just heard you. Behavior helps us. We're going to have a behavior reaction. I'm sorry. Data helps us. We're going to have a behavior reaction. Data tells us what modification we need to make.
Yeah.
Is it a focus point? Is it a challenge point? Is it a stuck point? So if you're running into these frustrations, control, profit, people hitting the ceiling, nothing is working, go to your data first before you start guessing and see what it's telling you.
Yeah.
It's no different than walking into a doctor's office. If I walk in and I'm 10 pounds over, which they'll probably tell me after this wedding this weekend, they're going to ask me what's going on. I'm going to say we had a wedding, good food. Okay, just making sure nothing crazy is going on.
Yeah, good. Awesome. Great conversation. Data matters.
Let's go.
In all things.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.